So I had another question for you, sir.
It's your thing.
I don't know if we've explored the topic of music very deep.
Ooh, probably have not, because we mostly talked about writing and film and books. Music is
Yeah.
something we have not touched on. What do you have in mind?
Well, what are three bands you couldn't live without?
Oh man, Pink Floyd, absolutely.
Clearly.
Pink Floyd for one. Um, Pink Floyd. Let me see what else. This is where it gets a little more difficult because then I have to decide like what other groups I want to. Because I don't necessarily follow groups as much. I follow individual songs. I'm more a la carte because I've never
What are
really like
three
collect
songs you can't live without?
Echoes by Pink Floyd,
Okay.
All Along the Watchtower by Jimi Hendrix.
Obviously, I like the Dylan version better, but go on.
Yeah, the Dylan version is good, but I think
Hendrix was the original, wasn't he?
no, Dylan was the original.
Oh, well,
It's
Hendrix
one
is
of, it's
still
one of
pretty
the,
good.
it's one of those versions that it's one of those things where like Dylan did the original and someone else did it and it's arguably better. If
Oh
you're
yeah, no, it's pretty good. Yeah, I like the Dylan version just because I was exposed to like a real rough's not the right word. It's obscure recording of
mm-hmm.
Watchtower by Dylan. It's not the
Yep.
popular one. It's an obscure one, and it was at IUPUI, and it was at the History of Rock and Roll, like
Hmm.
volume 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And I can't find that version,
Yep.
and I wish I
Those
could.
are, those are like those things you hear late at night, like when you're listening to some like local radio station it's like not owned by fucking Cumulus or whatever, and you hear this version, you're like it opens your eyes. It's like a fucking take. It's like a drug experience or something. Because I had an experience like that. I'll give something. I'll give something. I'll tell a story about myself before we first trying to decide. Do I want to? So it's Echoes by Pink Floyd, All Along the Watchtower by Jimi Hendrix Experience, and House of the Rising Sun by the Animals. And it would probably Give Me Shelter by the Rolling Stones if I had to pick a fourth. But the part of the reason that I love Echoes by Pink Floyd so much, especially the version they did like live at Pompeii, which is if you've never seen that video, I can send it to you. It's one of the most phenomenal fucking music videos ever. Basically, what they did, they released it as part of like a. This is like before music videos were a thing. It came out in like 71, so it's about 10 years before MTV even existed. But what they did is they recorded themselves over the span of a couple of days playing their song Echoes in this ancient and this like 2,000-year-old amphitheater in Pompeii to no audience. And like the comments on the YouTube video are just fucking they're like so phenomenal because people like the ancient Romans built this amphitheater just for Pink Floyd to play this. And then of course my
Yeah.
favorite one, which is Pink Floyd has sent more people to space than NASA.
Yeah.
But I listened to that song one of the first times I ever listened to it after I discovered it, or not, I heard it for the first time on some video on like Reddit or whatever. I was driving home from work at 3 o'clock in the morning. This is back when I still worked third shift at the supermarket. I was feeling sick because I hadn't had my medicine. My head was hurting, and I was driving home at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was basically high because I was going through like withdrawals from medicine. And I'm listening to this fucking psychedelic rock song by Pink Floyd, and I was
This
like,
medicine has been prescribed to you by a licensed physician.
yeah, yes, oh
Okay.
yes, yes, not
Just for our listeners' benefit.
of course, yes. This is medicine that I've been taking for years now. It's just that part of I think the only reason I didn't take I was not taking it those days is because I was on such a fucked up sleep schedule
Yeah.
with the third shift that I forgot to take it for a couple of days. And it's one of those ones where if you get to take it for a couple of days, it really lets you know.
Yeah.
And I was basically, like I said, I was basically going through withdrawal from this medicine, so I was kind of high, and I was listening to Pink Floyd and driving through the dark at like 3 o'clock in the morning in like February or March or something. It was really surreal.
Yeah. Yeah, the brain will do that to you. If you want to go back to songs you can't live without, I would say there is a there's a band I love called Blue October,
Mm-hmm.
and the
I know
frontman
what the
is
story is.
yeah, the frontman is the lead singer and the main writer, Justin Furlan. I think that's how you say his name. And they have a song called Breakfast After 10. It's about getting over a breakup. And I was driving, I was getting off active duty and I was leaving El Paso. And I remember my 99 Dodge Grand Caravan, the speed sensor had gone out. So I'm driving and I can't really tell how fast I'm going. You kind of know what 45, 50 feels like, right?
After a
And
rough time.
yeah, I'm like, this is probably 45 or 50, right? Like my cop's not, that's not what a judge is going to vibe with. But, you know, so, and as I find a place, I find a mechanic probably 2 hours south of El Paso. Uh, I hear Breakfast After
That's
10.
Mexico, dude.
No, but okay. So I'm on I-10 going, I'm on I-10 going what? East.
Out, I was about to, okay, so east of El Paso.
2 hours outside, southeast of El Paso.
Okay, that makes more sense
I
because
was
El
not.
Paso is
I am.
literally on the friggin' border.
I know. I'm not. I have not had the chance to go to Mexico yet, and honestly, I'm good. But no, I caught Breakfast After 10, and then on my way home, I kept listening to it. I kept discovering more Blue October, and there is a album they put out called Foiled, where every song is beautiful and it's sad and it's soaked in melancholy. And I had just broken up with a woman at the time. And at the time, it loomed so large in my life, this breakup. Oh my God, just a sad 23, 24-year-old version of me. And so I'm listening to this sad breakup music that's so densely melancholic and perfect and delicious. And because at the time, the lead singer had just gotten clean from, like, he had just finished ruining his life with hardcore drugs. And this was the album he wrote after he kicked drugs and got clean and got his shit together and started rebuilding things. And oh, dude, it's so good. And that's probably Foiled plus Breakfast After 10 you got to have. Um Anything by the Foo Fighters, we'll say before 2015.
Yeah.
Because I love the Foo Fighters, but at a certain point, you're like, oh, you're just kind of contractually obligated to make albums.
See, it's funny. A lot of the albums, like if we're talking albums instead of individual songs, a lot of the albums that I couldn't live without are like movie soundtracks.
Yeah.
I could not live without the Lord of the Rings music, the music to Halo 2. Um,
Revenge of the Sith album is pretty good.
oh yeah, basically anything John Williams ever did for Steven Spielberg or George Lucas is like fucking give it to me now.
Basically.
Anything that Hans Zimmer has done for like Christopher Nolan or guys like that. The soundtrack to The Martian comes readily to mind, and then of course there's the greats like probably though if I had to water it all, if I had to narrow it all down to one movie soundtrack album that I could take with me to a desert island, if I only had like three discs I could take, it would be Vangelis's Blade Runner soundtrack.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of figured it would be something to do with Blade Runner for you.
Yeah, because that's just such fucking good music. Like I used to like when I worked at Best Buy. Or do you want me to name the place, or do you want me to
Go ahead. Best Buy's fine.
Okay, when I worked at Best Buy, I used to listen to Blade Runner Blues, which is like the soundtrack that comes on. It comes on twice in the movie. It comes on when Deckard is like looking out over his balcony after Rachel leaves the first time after she comes to his apartment, and then it comes on again when Deckard kills Zora, the first female replicant that dies.
Yeah.
Actually, the first replicant that dies, I think, in the movie, and it's that sort of sad, like it's the first time. It's one of the things that made me fall in love with Blade Runner, because when I first watched that movie, I was like, oh, this is like sad saxophone music you'd hear in an old noir film, except they're doing it with synthesizers. And it
Yeah.
was so fucking on point because it fit the vibe and the aesthetic of Blade Runner so perfectly that it's just one of the things that immerses you in the story, because it's like, oh, even the music is future noir.
Yeah. Kind of hits you at the right time.
Yeah.
I
It's like, we're talking about like songs that you can only listen to once. Like you can only listen to the first time once. I was like, when we were talking a minute ago about like when I listened to Echoes coming home, and sort of a weird state of mind, and you were driving around listening to Blue October. The first time I ever heard a song sung by a band called Great White, which is an old like hair metal group from the 80s.
yeah.
There's a song called "Rock Me," which is like a sort of a power, it's like a metal power, like a hair metal power ballad or whatever you want to call it. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but I heard that song for the first time like Thanksgiving week, or like the night before Thanksgiving, probably like 6 years ago, six
Yeah.
or 7 years ago, because I remember it was a night that I was working at Best Buy, funnily enough, and what I did, I worked until like 8 o'clock p.m. or even eight. It might have been later. It might have been like 11 o'clock p.m. I worked a long shift on one day, and then I drove through the night to get to my aunt and uncle's house in South Bend, Indiana, and stayed with them. Had Thanksgiving dinner, pretty much like that fucking like the other song, Arlo Guthrie song. Had Thanksgiving dinner, couldn't be beat. And then I like took a nap, and then I drove back through the night to go to like 5 a.m. shift for Black Friday.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. But
That's a turn and burn right there.
oh yeah, and that song. I think it was one of the. It might not have been that trip, but it was one of those trips, because I know I made that trip up to South Bend like in the nighttime a couple times. And this song, it's for those of our listeners who haven't heard it, just look it up. It's called "Rock Me" by Great White, and it's basically what it rocks you. It's just rock me through the night. I don't know how to describe. I don't have a good singing voice. I don't have if I could only ever play one instrument, that was a friggin' oboe. So
You play the oboe?
yeah,
Yeah, I played the violin for 8 or 9 years. I get
yeah,
it.
yeah.
I
I
would
don't think,
say if there's another song I can't live without, in addition to Breakfast After 10 by Blue October, um, are you familiar with William Shatner's extended discography?
I am not.
So his
Is it one of
second
his
album,
spoken word poems?
well, yes, but also there's quite a few. There's like he'll get like Garth Brooks and people to work with him and stuff, and Ben Folds did a lot of work with him in the 2000s, and they did a cover of a song by the band Pulp. It was called "Common People," and uh, the chorus goes, "You want to live with common people, you want to do whatever common people do, you want to sleep with common people, you want to sleep with common people like you, and or I want to sleep with common people like you," and it's about it's about class division. It's about
Mhm.
um a rich girl slumming it with some poor guys. It's about people being a tourist in poverty, right? Like there's a line where it says you can call your dad and he could stop it all. And like you have a way out of this. You could go live in a nice house with plenty of food.
Mhm.
And we all live here. And this is just like a fun experience. This is a summer vacation for you, and these are
Mhm.
our lives. And I vibed with that so hard, and I related to it. And as I get older, it affects me differently now, Nick, because now I'm the tourist. I don't actively tour, you know, but it's more I don't live that experience anymore. I have memories of it,
Mhm.
of money troubles and things, and I don't really have those anymore. And And I'm very aware of that. And I'm very aware of my place in life and how good my life is and how it doesn't have to be so good. And so I should always remember how it is. And I know it sounds goofy, but that silly, silly man, William Shatner, put it together an album of covers and kind of spoken word rock songs in 2004. And I swear to God, it was the album of my summer of my 17th year, right? I was 17 years old and I listened to William Shatner's Common People album 1,000 times. Um, he talks about being there. He has a song called, no, it's called Has Been. I think the album's called Has Been. And he has a song called Has Been. And he goes, has been might be again. Has been implies I tried. What have you tried? And kind of just being himself. And William Shatner as a recording artist shouldn't work. And it just barely does. But if you can take the ride with it, oh, it's so camp fun. I'm reading his series of Star Trek spin-off novels right now.
Yeah.
Where in Star Trek 7 Generations, Kirk dies, and William Shatner's like, but what if he didn't? And then they wrote like 10 books, and he recorded all of them. And it's where Kirk is like palling around with Jean-Luc Picard, and like, for real, like fucking and there. Okay, so he wrote a book called The Ashes of Eden, where it takes place between Star Trek 6 Generations, no, Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country, and Star Trek 7 Generations, where the Enterprise is decommissioned, the crew is split up, and Kirk, who is 60, starts shacking up with this woman who's maybe 25.
Jesus Christ. That sounds like Shatner.
It does. And but to his credit, Spock and McCoy are like, fucking really, bro? Like, are you serious? And so like, because he retires, and then the plot of it
it's basically Star Trek Kirk.
It's Star Trek Kirk, right? And hey man, I'm here for it, right? I'm in. I read all these when I was a kid, and it's really the catalyst of I became obsessed at an early age with like the last gunfighters, like the final adventure of the old gunslinger, right?
Mm-hmm.
And although reading William Shatner be like, he's just there's a woman who's the leader of this planet, and then she's like, come with me, it's the fountain of youth, let's bang and ride horses on my planet. And Kirk's like, yeah. That sounds great. Thank you very much.
Of course, there's horses. There's got to be horses since it's
There's got to be horses. I'm such a fan of William Shatner, and you have to, you can't take it too seriously. You just got to be like, yeah, this is delicious camp. Just kind of roll with it.
Yeah.
But
totally.
Yeah. So what are you reading these days? Anything good?
I just actually, what did I just start listening to? I just started, I mostly listen to books nowadays. But I just started listening to a book called The Rise and Reign of the Mammals, which is by a guy named Stephen Brusatte, who is a paleontologist who works at I want to say the University of Edinburgh in Scotland.
Yeah.
I listened to a book of his about maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I think when I was working, no, it might have been longer than that, but he wrote a book a few years back called The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs.
Okay.
And as a paleontologist, his primary interest was the dinosaurs, and specifically like how they fell and how how they went extinct and the end of their reign and all of that stuff. But he even said, because I only listened to the introduction of this new book so far. I listened to it while I was taking a shower this afternoon, actually, because that's one of the places where I listen to books is while I'm showering or driving or working, like
Sure.
stuff.
I get that.
Yeah, he was talking about how when he since he's moved to the University of Edinburgh to teach there and be a professor, he's sort of strayed from dinosaurs a little bit, and these nice mammal people have let them into their world, and because he said the way he puts it, it's interesting because prehistoric mammals, even no matter how far we go back, even if we go back a couple 100 million years, like the dawn of the dawn of the mammal epoch, which mammals emerged around the same time as dinosaurs. For those of our listeners who don't know, Uh, they're relatable because they're us. There's all the mammals that have ever been are more closely related to us than any other species, other form of life on the earth. So
Sure.
yeah, I was listening to that. I started listening to a book, kind of a campy sort of like space opera book. That I'll probably finish at some point, called The Circuit, I want to say, which is by a guy who's like
What's it about?
it's about it's part of the reason I wanted to listen to it is because I was kind of like checking out the competition. Because stop me if you've heard this one. It's set a few hundred years in the future, and there's tension between like the outer solar system and Ceres, and Earth is kind of not in the picture. And the main characters are people from the outer solar system who are trying to stop Ceres from doing stuff
Sure.
to them. So, or something like that. Or
I
maybe
so
people
look
from
forward to it.
yeah. So, but yeah, I sometimes listen. I sometimes listen to books not just for entertainment, but also to see what the opposition is up to,
Definitely.
or not opposition, like competition.
So have you had a chance to watch those Star Trek DVDs?
Yeah, the one you mean Star Trek: Strange New Worlds?
Yeah, the one I gave you.
I watched that on Paramount Plus last year, dude.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
I'm happy to have it, but that's so I can have it
Yeah.
on like a physical copy. But yeah, my dad and I watched those when they aired.
I didn't realize that. No,
No,
but
you're
yeah, no,
fine.
we had we were part of Stranger Worlds trivia at a pub in town, and we won third place, and I already had a copy of Strange New Worlds on Blu-ray for season 1, and so I thought, oh, I bet Nick doesn't have that.
Yeah. Well, I don't. Well, like I said, it's good to have a physical copy because unless Blu-ray like fucking goes belly up sometime in the next 5 years, which God forbid, you should still have access to that sort of stuff. Because like my Xbox can play Blu-ray discs.
Yeah,
I actually use my Xbox as a DVD player these days. I haven't played a game on it probably in about a couple of years.
that would make a lot of sense. Yeah, I
So
I mean, you've seen my house is covered in DVDs and stuff,
yeah,
and I also have every streaming service on demand. But I don't think the streaming services will be around very much longer.
yeah, the streaming wars are probably building to a head when that boiling point comes. It's probably not going to be very fun because
No.
it's just they keep trying to outcompete one another, and the problem with everyone trying to outcompete one another is sooner or later everyone dies.
Yeah, and they're just I think they run out of money.
Yeah, especially with this stuff going on this year. All the stuff that's going on with well, 'cause I mean, look at how unsustainable the streaming model is. It supposedly makes them so much money, but at the same time, they're also like, well, we don't want to pay our actors and writers, and it's like, well, fuck you then. You don't deserve to exist.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a part of me that's like, well, maybe we'll just I don't know.
It's like
Maybe
I saw an article just this afternoon as I was like hanging out and reading stuff, or just this evening rather, while I was reading stuff on Facebook, talking about how Netflix is one of Netflix's little devious practices is when
mm,
they release a film like say Glass Onion to try and get it available for Oscar contention. They only release it long enough to make it available for Oscar contention, but not long enough to qualify it as a theatrical release, so they don't have to pay theatrical uh, dividends to their actors and writers and crews and stuff. So that's just fucking it's asinine.
yeah. Yeah, they and mine's on a micro. It
Mm-hmm.
barely exists. But in the previous iteration of Divided by Zero books in our heyday, I always was really proud when I was able to pay people, right? Like I was like, oh, we made some money somehow. Here's your share,
Yeah.
Because that meant that I did my job as publisher, right?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, sir, I think we can stop there
Yeah.
and we'll talk a little bit afterward. For the Blank Board for Solitude, I am Derwin,
Nick.
and we will see you next Monday morning at 0700. So you got a call for a job offer.
Yeah, yesterday, that's August 28th of 2023, I got this call about a position I'd applied for at one of the NASA contractors that would be at NASA headquarters in DC. So, like, within a couple blocks of the Capitol building, where I would be working as a communications specialist, helping basically do exactly what I do now at Goddard, except I'd be doing it at NASA headquarters and potentially rubbing shoulders with like the leaders of NASA and different divisions and stuff. So that's pretty fucking cool, if I do say so my own self.
Okay. So it'd just be science writing at the Capitol?
Well, it'd be science writing and like memo. It'd be a little bit of all sorts of different types of communication, but mostly science writing. Yes, mostly like working on communications and outreach for NASA. But it would be based at the headquarters location, which is I don't know DC. I don't know the layout of DC at all, so I can't like place it on a map. But it's very close to the Capitol because I did go there during the summer for one day for like.
I've heard it's mostly damp caves for lizard people, but go on.
Well, you're not wrong about the damp cave part because freaking DC is all a big swamp. I've told several people that, and they just,
Not a metaphorical swamp, a literal one.
Yes, we're not talking about the whole drain the swamp. No, it's there's the truth. The only truth to that is that yes, DC, like the whole DMV area used to be a big bog, basically. Before they paved it all over and turned it into the capital of the United States.
That's great. Do you know? Wait, did you? So it wasn't like a firm offer then?
No, it was not an offer yet. So far, all it was a phone call. They said they'd get back in touch with me sometime the next couple of days, and I'd probably have a virtual interview Thursday or Friday.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but the reason I'm excited about it is because the guy I talked to, whose name I forget and probably shouldn't share anyway, so we're not gonna mess with that. He seemed the guy I talked to seemed very adamant about, or very not adamant's not the right word, very very enthused about me as a candidate. He seemed like, oh well, this is kind of a sure thing. So again, I may be like over interpreting things or reading too much into it, but it seemed like there was a good chance this could work out because like to be called up and be like, hey, are you interested in this position? And it's like, oh yeah, they might want me.
It is so exciting to watch you find success in real time.
Thank you.
And see your rocket ship take off. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Sometimes I'm like, is that a cat hair or a beard hair? That'll be the tag. As she navigates a pandemic, late-stage capitalism, while pretending everything is totally fine, Sloane lives alone with her dog, Moose. Struggling with this juggling act, Sloane breaks down one night and wishes magic were real. The next thing she knows, she's having a conversation with her dog and levitating a spoon in her kitchen. Subscribe now to Versatile Ambitions on Substack and read the first chapter of Once a Millennium today. It was exactly 1 month after I got to Iraq.
Passed the PT test today. Not by a whole lot.
Always a proud moment with every milestone I have.
The things I've seen, the hijinks that ensue.